Hey guys, Postron here, and today let's talk about the explosive trap Saboteur that I made for a league starting scenario. Now, we just finished Cyrus A8 on my stream over there on twitch.tv/Postron, and basically if you want to hang out, you want to ask me questions, you want to see me league start different things, I'm probably already at the next build, we're gonna see. Check me out. And also the thing here I want to put right at the start, right at the beginning, a disclaimer. I do not know how the patch notes for 3.17 are going to look like. I don't know how the bosses are going to play. So when I say Leaguestart testing, that means I'm using a skill that I don't know how it's going to perform at a Leaguestart scenario. I can kind of just test it out with what we have right now. And once the patch notes come out, I will do updates on this. I will make an update video about all the skills I tested. One of them is going to be Explosive Trap. So if you're interested, you can sub to the channel and see it as soon as patch notes are out. I will update every single one of these skills that I tried out. And basically, yeah, I just want to say this is not a full-fledged build guide because it can't be. And if somebody tells you otherwise, probably don't trust them. This is merely testing out a skill that I've been underestimating for a long time, but not anymore. Let's talk about it. Now, Explosive Trap is kind of an interesting skill in that it is fire and physical. So old shenanigans, you have to actually convert it to 100% fire, which we're obviously doing. And it has base physical damage. It already converts 50% on its own, and we are going to use the mastery and then a glove craft to get it to 100%. Now, throws a trap that creates a large explosion when triggered, and then it also has a lot of small explosions. Down here it says causes 8 smaller explosions, and you can scale this up to 10 with the helm enchant. Other than that, there isn't really much to this skill. It is basically you throw down the trap that has a lot of small explosions. They can all overlap. So the interesting thing is also that AoE does not only increase your clear potential, it also increases your single target because it will mean more overlaps. All right, so Palstrom from the future here. I just want to point out that for the Veritania kill you're about to see, I did not have any auras on. So basically my defenses are fucked and I lose like, I don't know, 50% of my damage. So just want to point that out. Do with that info whatever you will. All right, I thought to show you the playstyle and the bossing at the same time, I'm gonna farm a Veritania real quick and show you here. This is Awakener 8, as you can see. Now, when it comes to Explosive Trap, one thing I will say is that I was very surprised by how good it is actually for clear if you scale its AoE. And the thing is, you want to scale the AoE anyways because of the overlaps, so it didn't really cost much. Now, in terms of buttons, yeah, number one, I want to mention, if you want to check out the Cyrus 8 that we did on stream, I'll link it down in the description. The quality is unfortunately too bad to put it on YouTube, but if you want to look at it, we did it live on stream, had some internet problems, so the quality was completely fucked up. Now, here's the thing. The buttons that you have, number one, Explosive Trap. While you're mapping, there's nothing really else you need to press. You also have Shield Charge, or if you need to get over ledges, you have Flame Dash, right? That's all you do. Now, in terms of buttons that you press at bosses, number one, Bear Trap, so they take 20% more damage. Number two, Flamethrower Trap. This is only there. It does some damage on its own, right? But it's mostly there for Calling Strike and from Combustion. It does a very good job at those because it has a lot of hits, right? So it very often checks for Calling Strike, which is cool. And Arcanist Brand is basically there to apply Assassin's Mark and Wave of Conviction. And the Bear Trap is just as a one link right there. So let's just get into it. And so let's do it real quickly. Number one thing I want to mention when you look at my setup here, this is actually a lot more tankier than you will usually find your trappers to be. This has 80 plus spell suppression. The only reason I don't go for more is I can't really afford the gear, right? We have kind of a 3x budget as of this recording. And number two is we're actually not going for explosive experts. So let me show that real quick. So here we have, wait, oops. Okay, maybe let's kill this dude before. Usually you would go for Explosive Expert. This is like 25% more damage. I actually go for Born in the Shadows. I just want to get levels early because every level you get means you get more power, right? You get more passive skill trees. Now, once you're level 95, 96, and you don't really need to level anymore, you can go more squishy, but I personally just like being a little bit more tanky, even as a trapper. Now, we're going to see that in a second. Obviously, the single target damage does get a little bit scuffed, removing that many damage sources. Let's do the boss real quickly. So we just throw this down. I should have prepared more, but let's just zerg him down real quick. I don't think it will be too much of a problem. I guess he phased out. All right, let's put this down. So I really like having a trapper that can actually take a hit or two Maybe it's just me. He phased out again. But yeah, so if you want a like super like glass cannon-y playstyle, this is probably not going to be the version for it. Now, let's really quickly go into the Redeemer's Eye and show you the single target damage here. So our Flamethrower traps are all up. We have our Bear Trap and our Arcanist Brand. So we go here, we throw it down. You can also like pre-fire these, right? However you want, but you don't want them to explode too early because otherwise they're going to be kind of fucked. You don't really have to sidestep most of these attacks with all the spell suppression that we have. When she does this, you definitely should get out of the way though. So let's just check this out real quick. Obviously, throw down as many traps as you can. In this phase, you will kind of want to use your shield charge so she doesn't do. And now she's almost in culling range. So we're going to real quickly get her there. And then we're going to destroy her. All right, the call is not up anymore. Now it should be up. Okay, nice. So that's basically how this looks like. Pretty cozy, I have to say. For the investment that we have, I'm going to talk over the items, gem setups, etc. If I have this at Leaguestart, I'm really happy about it. A lot of people say Explosive Trap sucks at clearing. I mean, you just saw it. I don't think that's bad at all. But let's get into the build a little bit more. As for Ascendancy, I went with Saboteur, but I would just point out that this is not the only choice for you. You can also go for a Raider or for a Deadeye, but the problem is that, in my opinion, they just don't bring as much power to the table. What Raider and also Deadeye bring to the table is speed, right? But with shield charge being what it is, I kind of didn't really feel the need to go for a weaker Ascendancy just to kind of shore up a little bit of speed, right? So I think in total, Saboteur is just such a solid choice that everything that's on Saboteur gives you so much upside. There's a perfect crime is just absolutely stunning. Chance for traps to trigger an additional time is very nice to have. You gain 10% increased damage for each trap. We have like up to 20 traps, so that's a lot of damage. And on top of that, reduced cost of skills that throw traps. This is extremely strong, especially stacked with Inspiration. You'll have almost no mana cost. And then the big payoff here is Chain Reaction. Now, as we already talked about, the 50% increased AoE is crazy good. The AoE you get from the passive tree is here, Blast Radius and Arcane Expanse. But after that, it's kind of dried up. We don't want to go Carcass Check, right? So after that, giving these 50% on top is not just for clear. Like I said, Explosive Trap has overlaps and has overlap potential, so that is already premium. But on top of that, you get when your traps trigger, your nearby traps also trigger. So basically what this means is whenever you throw traps, if you want them to explode, either they have to run out of its duration, like here, or an enemy has to step on them. So if an enemy doesn't step on them, you're kind of screwed, right? And if you throw, I don't know, 5 traps and they all go in different directions, it's kind of weird because the enemy might step on here and these might never trigger, right? So that's kind of weird. So what you can do is, number one, you can stack trap, trigger, area of effect, right? But in the end, even that is not going to help this out 100%. But what will help 100% is Chain Reaction, because now when one trap triggers, everything around it triggers in a chain reaction, right? That's basically what this node does. It's a complete no-brainer. It is huge. On top of that, the first line with cooldown recovery is nice. We're not really using it. We're just using Flamethrower traps for bosses. But if you want to go more into Flamethrower traps, you have that. And you also have this cluster here to go for even more cooldown recovery. And the thing about Saboteur is it doesn't just have those 2 nodes. It's actually really, really hard to pick because there's the 4 mine nodes here, but all the other ones are up for competition. Now, these 4, absolute no-brainers. These 2, also no-brainer. Pyromaniac, immune to Ignite and Shock, already crazy strong, but then you also get regenerate 2% of life per second for each trap triggered recently, up to 10 per second. 10% life regen, basically up all the time. For a build that doesn't have Leech, this is extremely strong. And then at the end, you have a choice to make here, and that is between Born in the Shadows and Explosive Expert. Now, I went for Born in the Shadows because I wanted to be a little tankier. 15% reduced damage taken from blinded enemies. Everything around you is blinded. Everything you hit is blinded. TLDR, everything's blinded all the time. So what this means is 15% reduced damage taken basically all the time. And it also means that they have less evasion rating and less accuracy. The evasion rating doesn't really matter because we're not checking for accuracy. We're a spell build, right? But them having less accuracy means that your evasion is basically stronger. So On top of that, if you want to go squishier, right, you can forego this. It's really rough, but you can go for Explosive Expert. This is like straight up 20 to 25% more damage, depending on what you already have in terms of crit multi and crit strikes, right? But my personal opinion on this is I like to go Born in the Shadows until I'm like at a comfy level, like 94, 95. And once I'm there and I got all the XP I needed, you can go for Explosives Expert. Now, if you're a bosser, if you just want to boss with this, probably go from the get-go. You can decide that. It really depends on your playstyle. I think Born in the Shadows is huge. Now let's go over the items here. And something I want to always point out when you're going for Leaguestart testing is set yourself realistic expectations. It sucks to test out a build just to find out it's bad, right? But it's better than like fooling yourself with too good gear and then being there at Leaguestart and you're like, this doesn't work out as I tested it, right? Because some items just cost less, right? Right now, this 6-link costs me like 20C or something. At Leaguestart, this will cost me like an Exalt, right? That's just how it is. So that's how you have to think and not like 3x month 3 of a league. It has to be 3x at Leaguestart, and that's what we're doing right here. You will see that right away. So we have a 6-link, and usually I like to do stuff with a tabby, but in this build, I want to go a little bit more tanky. I want to go for Energy Shield Evasion, which this base is. It is not the best base. The best base would be more expensive, which is not really worth it. And all I did was I spammed Screaming Essences of Greed. I think in total we used like 4, if I remember correctly, until I get the chance to suppress spell damage. This is like a T2. I would have also settled on, is it T3? No, I would have also settled at T3 or something, right? It doesn't have anything else, which is a little bit unlucky, right? Some res would have been nice, but it is what it is. And you want the 10% of maximum life as extra maximum energy shield, which is going to be huge because we're scaling ghost stands and we won't really have that much other sources of energy shield. We're not really using discipline, right? So this is a huge thing to get. Obviously, you can start out with Tabby. We actually started off with Tabby. Let me check the box. This is all items that we used. We can go over this a little bit in the leveling section, but these are all items that we used. I'm actually for sure gonna look over this a little later. As for wand, we went for fire damage to spells, crit. Now, if we wanted a +1 fire gems, that would obviously be GG, but that's also not really in our budget. So on top of that, you want trap throwing speed, which is going to be very important to get down your stuff quickly. You have the same on the Emmy. We want crit multi, life, if we can, energy shield or resistances. And then we want to go for trap throwing speed. Now, one thing I did for the anoint here is I actually anointed Entrench, and that's just because I wanted more spell suppress because I couldn't get enough from gear alone. And what this also does is life flasks gain free charges when you suppress spell damage. Now, one thing at Leaguestart is a lot of your recovery will actually come from your life flask, which in turn means that stuff like this can actually make a huge difference. If, for example, you stand in the middle of like spark mages or like arc mages or whatever, right? Your life flask will shoot up like crazy. This is actually a very quality of life. It's also 10% chance to suppress spell damage. And if you look at it, the anoint is super cheap. These are super easy, not even a black oil or anything. So yeah, it was just kind of a quality of life here. As you can see, I'm sacrificing a lot of like burst damage in general for a little bit more defenses, which is just how I like to play until I'm like level 94, 95. Now, as for Helm Enchant, here we have the Explosive Trap causes 2 additional explosions. This is a really good Helm Enchant, right? I don't know how much this is. This league, it was like nothing, but that's also because Seismic Trap was so huge. So really hard to say how much this really is. But yeah, all I did here was, once again, Screaming Essence of Greed is your best friend. Use it until you get anything. You get the life for sure, and then on top of that, you get some stuff. Here, I didn't really get anything. I got some fire res, some evasion and energy shield, and an open suffix to craft on, right? As for shield, once again, I would love a +1. It's not in my budget. Fire damage, a little bit of crit chance for spells, life, and then another suffix open to craft. We only have 25% movement speed here. Now, this is basically because if you want spell suppress on your boots, there is no way you're going to get high life, 30% movement speed, and good spell suppress on your boots at Leaguestart. So we kind of went for these. Instead of 30, 25, also lower life, right? And that's just what we went with to get the spell suppress in there because it's really important. As for gloves, nothing special here as well. You want an open prefix for physical damage converted to fire. Now, the way we convert is We have 50% from Explosive Trap innately. Then we get another 40% from the Fire Mastery. And then there's like 10% left. So it doesn't matter the roll on this. Just fill it up to 100 with the last conversion. As for belt, I really would have loved. The funny part about this one is this actually had fire resistance on it, which was crazy. I think it was like T2 fire res, and we actually annulled it off because this belt was too strong. We rolled into it accidentally, so we just annulled and made it worse, which was a little bit funny. But yeah, this belt is nothing special as well. Now, that's basically the gear. As for flasks, nothing special. So number one here, once again, Taste of Hate. Might be more expensive at Leaguestart. Last league it was 20C. If it's more expensive, it's not really for the damage. We're not really scaling cold damage. It's mostly for defenses. So if you can't afford this, go for a Jade Flask instead, which is what I will do once I've fixed my mana. But right now I have to still use a Enduring Mana Flask. The suffix doesn't really matter. Just look that it's Enduring and any high tier Mana Flask. You can roll these yourselves really, really easily. Now, on my Quicksilver, there is reduced effect of curses. I would prefer more movement speed, obviously. Chance to gain flash chart does when crit does nothing. Then we have a Quartz Flask. Really nothing on here as well. I guess you get a little bit of reduced effect of chill, but you're already freeze immune, so this doesn't do anything. So Quartz Flask is huge for the phasing and for the spell suppress. And then at the end, you have your Life Flask. You can either go for a bubbling Life Flask, so a Life Flask that's like a little bit instant and then the rest over time, or you can just go over time here. You can also go full instant, whatever you want. You can even go 2 Life Flask if you prefer it that way. But yeah, that's basically the setup that we went with against Cyrus. As for the gem setup, we have the Explosive Trap right here, and it is supported by Fire Pen, Trap and Mine damage, increased critical strikes, cluster traps, and inspiration. There's not really too many interesting things here, pretty straightforward. I will say that cluster traps is the best choice over the other choices to get your traps faster down. Multiple traps in particular is really, really bad. Number one thing I want to say here is if you can get your hand on a divergent cluster trap that basically makes it so your cluster traps are more together, right, when you throw them. So if you can see here, it's kind of thrown in a cluster, but if I get the divergent one, it's going to be more together, which gives you more overlaps. If you can get that, which was not in our budget because it doesn't really exist on like day one, go for it immediately. This is going to increase your single target damage by a lot. Inspiration, there's other supports that would do more damage, but inspiration will mean that our mana situation is a lot more comfy. Then we have our Flamethrower trap setup, which is supported by Calling Strike and Combustion. This is basically the function of calling enemies and then also applying combustion for the minus res. And then we also have advanced traps to give it a little bit of increased skill effect duration and a little bit of trap throwing speed. If I wanted this to actually do damage, I would obviously do it differently, but this is mostly there to do a little bit of damage, but then also mostly for those secondary effects like calling combustion. Other than that, I really like the Arcanist brand setup here. The reason is you have a lot at your plate to like do, right? There's a lot of things you can do to do more damage. So just being able to throw down your brand and it will just stay and apply Assassin's Mark and Wave of Conviction whenever convenient is very nice for the playstyle. I usually only use this for bosses. This is just a free link, basically. Assassin's Mark, Wave of Conviction. Pretty much no-brainers. And the bear trap is just a one link. Just to point this out, you actually have to throw this. Brands cannot throw traps. But other than that, we have some one-offs, right? We have a cost damage taken setup with Steel Skin, which is pretty good for defenses. Other than that, we have Flame Dash with Arcane Surge. Don't level this too high. Make it so one Flame Dash does always trigger this. It's really, really nice. We have Shield Charge together with faster attacks, just to get you from point A to point B. It's more reliable than Flame Dash because it doesn't need any charges. It's also just faster if you have a Quicksilver Flask. Now, as for auras, we have Herald of Ash, which is a huge more multiplier. It gives you more spell damage, more fire spell damage, and also the Fizz as extra fire damage. Skitterbots, complete no-brainer. It shocks, it chills, it gives you more trap damage. It's insane. It's a must-have. And then I have a setup here that's like Grace plus Defiance banner. This basically makes our we basically have a Ghost Stand setup here, so this gives us a lot of defenses. Like I said, if you want to go more straightforward, you can go for a Zealotry setup here and just go Zealotry. And I don't know what you want to do with these 10%. Maybe you can fit in another Herald, like a Herald of Purity. Since we're scaling from physical damage, that would also increase your damage, but that's basically our aura setup. Now, as for the passive tree, number one thing that you will see here is we have 0 jewels. You do not have to invest into anything to get what you saw in the preview. Now, here's the thing. There's a lot of good trap clusters. So you are very you're stretched thin for damage nodes. You have to take this. These are also really, really good. These are extremely good. So if you see like a damage thing like Will of Blades and you think, why the hell didn't he take it? It seems so good for the build. It's because you're very stretched for points if you actually want to survive. You can, and that's something about traps, you have so many points you can invest into if you wanna. If you wanna stretch yourself thin and go glass cannon, do it. I did not opt to go for that. I wanted a little bit more of a nicer playstyle for Leaguestart. I really don't enjoy dying that much. So basically what I did is, so you go for the trap clusters here. Number one trap cluster you want to get to, Master Sapper. It's actually, let me do it in the right config. So you go through here, right? Number one thing is Expeditious Munitions. This is basically just for the trap throwing speed. The trap trigger area of effect is cute kinda, but you do have chain reaction, so it's not really that necessary, right? The number one thing is after the skill tree rework, trap throwing speed is really hard to come by. Every bit of trap throwing speed that you can get wherever, take it. Just take it. Be happy that it exists. The first mastery it takes is traps cannot be damaged. This is a little bit like sketchy because traps can actually not be damaged in the first few seconds, and that's fine, right? Usually you won't need this node, but I will say that overall, I just wanted it for comfiness. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know if you could remove this and it would change anything about the build. I'm just really used to having this on the old tree, so it's kind of nice to have, so I took it. Now, the second one we go for is Skitterbots has increased mana reservation efficiency. Like I said, if you don't go for the banner, for example, if you don't go for the setup, if you go Zealotry instead of Grace, then you don't need this, and you probably don't need this mastery. Then you can go for the 5%, then you can go for the, where was it? Up to 5% additional traps placed at a time if you want to. We also have the 5% chance to throw up to 4 additional traps. If you want to, you can also go for the 5 additional traps placed at a time here, but those are the most important things. Those are your trap masteries, which are really, really strong. Second trap cluster you want to get to is Clever Construction, huge. Unstable Munition, more AoE, more overlap, and high explosives also gives you power charges on top of just being extremely strong. So this one gives you power charges. Master Sapper gives you frenzy charges, absolutely massive. So then we're also down here. You want the Charisma to fit in all your auras. In general, every single build, in my opinion, should have either this cluster, or this cluster, like the Sovereignty cluster, because after the rework, you can basically fit in another 50% aura just for these points. They're huge, so try to position your builds in a way where they can get one of those wherever you are on the tree. Then we go up here. Instinct is actually surprisingly good. If you have close to, I don't know how much spell suppression we have right now. Let me actually check that real quick in terms of defense. 86% with the flask up, we're almost at 100%. Press 2, 96%. So whenever you get hit by a spell, you're recovering 50 energy shield, which doesn't sound like much, but if you're standing in the middle of like Spark Mages or Archmages, you will see your energy shield go like crazy. So against some bosses, for example, it is really, really good. We also go for a lot of these hybrid nodes, right? We have Written in Blood, Doomcast, just more damage. And Ghost Dance is basically just there to give you another defensive layer. It would be really hard to get to like 6k life, but it's a lot easier when you go hybrid with Energy Shield, which does have its advantages. You go for as much AoE as possible. We go for Blast Radius. We go for Arcane Expanse for these overlaps. Other than that, nothing really special. One thing I want to point out is really important is that you get the 40% converted to fire, so that with the gloves together, you can have 100%. Right, so as for leveling, basically you just have to know where you want to go. And the thing about Explosive Trap is that it is a level 1 skill. Now, can you use it from the get-go? Yes, you can. Is it going to be your best option? You can use different tactics. There's a lot of racing stuff out there. What I will say to you is that I leveled from it from level 1 on up to end game. I've never really had it feel bad per se. I will say that it needs some help in terms of AoE early. The thing about Explosive Trap, one of the things is it has innate radius, and it starts at like +1 or something, and it goes up to +7 there, right? So that is huge. That is a more multiplier to your AoE, and those levels will make a huge difference. So don't be like scared at the start. You will get exactly what I have here. If you follow all of these instructions, you will get a complete destruction of your screen, right? But basically, we started as always, and we go through here. So I'm just going to tell you, you can use Explosive Trap, all the other stuff from the get-go, and that's how I did it. Nothing complicated at all. So at the start, we're not crit yet, so we don't go through Assassination. We actually go through Elemental Focus. Pause from the future here. I just put the whole build up without telling you to go Saboteur. This is a really important note that you should take right away, so I'm going to put it right here, right now. Definitely include this from the get-go. Once you're here, this is the first thing you're going to get at level 11 or something. Now, if you want to, actually, you should also take Blood Siphon for the strength, because you're going to need it for gems. As for now, this region here is basically not important. What is important is getting through here, getting up here to Expedition Munitions. This will give you trap throwing speed and some trap trigger area. And the thing is, until we get chain reaction, all the trap trigger area is very nice to actually make enemies, like they don't exactly have to step on your trap. There's a little bit more radius to that, which is very nice, right? So you get this, and your first mastery should probably be the traps cannot be damaged. Now, like I said, I don't know if this is actually necessary. I'm just so used to it at this point that I always take it. It's very comfy to play. Now, after you have this one, you have a ton of damage. As you can see, opposite to a lot of builds that might have problems with Leaguestart, trappers have so much upfront damage, they will never have a problem. So what you can do here, and what I did, is rush for AoE immediately. So this will mean more overlaps for your Explosive Trap, so that's going to mean better playstyle. After that, we go through here, go for Written in Blood. Now, we could not take it and just go here, right? Because we want to be at this cluster next. But, I mean, we might as well, right? So at this point, we go down here. We're not crit yet. Once again, we have way too much damage, way too many nodes to get to even care about crit. So these nodes for now are completely left out. We go Clever Construction into Unstable Munitions. This is going to be enough for now. And now I would say you're probably at the point where you want the Skitter Bots Mono Reservation, because it will mean that you can use Skitter Bots plus a 50% aura, whatever you choose. You can already go for Grace. Nothing will really hit you if you do so. You can also go for a damage aura if you wish to. But basically, this is going to allow you exactly that. And now you have two options. Number one, you can go down to Charisma, go down to Master Sapper, or you can continue your way to the left side, and that is probably what I would tell you to do. So what you want to do right here is you want to go right here and immediately go for Blast Radius. So this will mean the second part of your AoE is done. Now this is where Explosive Trap will start to feel really, really good. You can even take this one if you want to, but this is like around about level 39, but don't fret, it's going to feel even better because as I said, the radius scales with levels, and also you still don't have chain reaction. Right now, your first points will be Perfect Crime here, and this you can do at level 55. But let's continue onwards. So you still do not need to even think about going crit. You have way more than enough damage. So what you do is you go down here and you take Master Sapper next. Now, this one is a little bit of an interesting one. You can go for this. You can go for the 5 additional traps. This will help you for single target if you really want to. You can also go for Trap Trigger Area before you have Chain Reaction if you really wish. You can go for this, which is kind of cute while leveling, not gonna lie. But usually I go for either this or this. It really depends. After that, I go for Charisma. Now, the thing about Charisma is you want this to get more auras up. So at this point, you will be able to basically go for Herald of Ash plus Skitter Bots plus maybe Grace, probably not Defiance Banner at this point. And you'll also, you'll need enough mana up for it to be comfortable, right? Next up after that, we want to go for Heart of Flame. And that is basically going to be the last part of non-crit scaling that you need, because this will give you more conversion. Now, you might be confused why I'm going for this conversion so late. Why am I not going this before Master Sapper? The reason is you don't really care whether it's Fire or Fizz at this point. The only really nodes that care are these nodes here. LE damage, LE damage. Everything else is just trap damage. So Whether it's fire or whether it's physical, doesn't really matter. But at this point, you're getting into fire pen, so you kind of want it to be fire. Now, after this one, personally, I go down here and I take heart and soul. You probably only have to take these two. This will also make your mana a lot easier. And now you can kind of see the setup here. And now we're basically done with non-crit scaling. What I will say is that you probably also want the Snowforge before you go for crit. Basically, just everything you want. You can go for the 10% of Fizz as extra of a random element. Pretty cute at this point. You can also go for 15 Aures, however you choose to. I think in the end version, I have the Aures, but for leveling, you can definitely go for the extra damage. After that, what we have to do is now transition into crit. Now, there's still some life left you can take here or there, but mostly this stuff here you want to take a little bit later. I would now go actually into crit. Number one thing, you want to get high explosives. Number two thing you want to do is go through assassination and respec these points. After that, you want to go for annihilation, right? At this point, you're at level 64. You're soon going to go into tabula territory, right? So you're going to prepare for that increased critical strikes support. And other than that, I think you also have Throat Seeker here, and you have Doomcast. After that, there's not really much more to do. You can fill up like life here or there. You can go for the crit multi against unique enemies. It's pretty good, but you're basically at my version right now, and this is how leveling is going to look like. As I said, this is extremely easy. Just look at when you can get the spells, right? You can get Bear Trap, you can get Flamethrower Trap whenever. Most importantly, Explosive Trap is going to be your number one skill, and you just support it to get more single target damage. As for useful unique items, number one thing, get yourself a Deerstalker as soon as possible. These are crazy. We used this up to level 86, I think, until we got something better because we really, really wanted these spell suppress. And don't get confused. You don't want this because of the socketed gems are supported by level whatever trap, right? Because Explosive Trap is already a trap. This doesn't do anything. So you don't have to socket it in there or something. This is for just straight up 30% movement speed, basically, if you have thrown a trap recently, which is insane. And then you, like, for a level 52 boots, that's insane. You also get trap throwing speed, which is a premium until you later get it on your wand and your Ami. It has a little bit of life. It has evasion. It's just so good. Like, get it as soon as you're level 52 if you have the cash for it. These can be sometimes 5C, sometimes 2C at Leaguestart. Sometimes you get them for 1C. I don't know. It's really, really weird, right? Tabula, get this one as soon as possible. You're not going to get this chest until you maybe find your first Exalt, or you can sell a few maps and get all your currency into one. And this usually costs 50C to an Exalt. I don't really know. You can go even for a worse base. I think this is the 3rd or 4th best evasion energy shield base. If you get a better one, obviously it's really nice. I think the best one is Carnal Armor, if I remember correctly, or Sadist Garb, one of the two. Other than that, we just have some really basic leveling gear. I guess for uniques, also I should mention Chernobox Pillar. The number one problem with the shield is it needs a lot of strength. So you have to gear for it, but it's very cozy because you get this conversion to 25% until you can actually craft it on your gloves, which you will need a bit. This is a betrayal craft, right? So you might not get that at the start. So if you can figure out the strength, definitely use this. We used it for a little bit, it was pretty nice. Yeah, and other than that, this is just gear that we wore basically up to like maybe even level 56. I made a snapshot of it. I can link it down in the description. Something I also want to just put here randomly. We actually tried out the Secrets of Suffering. The problem is you don't have enough like effect of these ailments because you have so many small hits that overall I didn't deem it necessary. If you're going into an endgame version and you have some crazy amounts of damage, you could reconsider going for this. Now, what is my conclusion at the end about explosive traps? So you might be surprised by me saying this, but I think this has kind of like been in the background because of Seismic Trap. I actually think that this is probably the next best trap to Seismic Trap. Now, I don't want to overhype the skill at all. I think the skill was ridiculous. Now, while leveling, if you want to really min-max it, you probably have to go for this at like level 55 once you have Chain Reaction and the AoE from here, right? then it really starts to come together. Until then, you'll have like this AoE cluster. A little later, you'll have this AoE cluster. It's going to feel fine, right? But you can definitely go for Lightning Trap if you want to. It's probably going to be faster if you want to race, if you want to compete, whatever you want to do. I just really like leveling from level 1 straight up, and that is what the skill provides. It never felt bad at any point. It always felt at least good, and endgame, it just never really fell off because of the crazy crit scaling that we get. And in the end, I just cannot be anything but impressed with the skill. Even me going out of the way. So one of the things that a lot of people say about trap builds is they can only do really good damage if you're like super squish, right? You go low life, you go petrified blood, you one-shot bosses. That's what all you can do with them. This build kinda gave me a little bit more trust into being able to scale defenses as well, because we are kinda at like 5.8k, 5.9k HP right here with almost 100% spell suppression, with like ghost dance right here. This feels really good to play. This feels really, really cozy to play. Quite a bit of evasion, even without a Jade Flask. I love this skill. I actually think this is going to be one of my contenders to play at Leaguestart. I will definitely update this one. I'm very, very excited for how this will turn out. And I might even do a little bit more investment, maybe try out like a 10, 15x, what we can do with that. Right now, really, really happy. Hope you consider this build, or maybe at least try it out for Leaguestart. But yeah, that's all for me. But that's it for the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribe. As always, a huge shout out to my Twitch subscribers and my Patreons. I couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much. Also, if you haven't already, consider pledging. Now, here's the thing, right? I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to overhype this, but yeah, I'm really hyped. I really like this. The only thing, GGG, please give us some kind of MTX for the skill. It doesn't have an MTX. Maybe it would be nice to have something where you can actually see what's going on. This can be very annoying while doing Cyrus. I don't know how the new bosses are going to be. Yeah, I just hope I can see the screen, right? That would be pretty cool. But yeah, with that being said, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.